Fear could either be your biggest enemy or your biggest friend. And you have to understand the concept that you have to become comfortable being uncomfortable. A lot of you guys have allowed your fears to dictate the actions that you take in your life. A lot of you guys have allowed your fears to essentially limit you in life. And what I've started to understand for myself is that in facing your fears is how you become comfortable in those fears. Exactly. So a lot of us are scared of feelings. A lot of us fear feeling certain situations. A lot of us don't even fear the situation itself or what can happen. We fear feeling those different scenarios. We fear feeling rejection. We fear feeling, not getting the outcome that we want. We fear feeling the worst case scenario. And what I've learned is that you have to place yourself sometimes in those fears in order to become comfortable enough to learn how to manage through those situations. A lot of you guys live your life and you're waiting for the right moment. You're waiting for the moment where you feel comfortable. You're waiting for the moment where the time just feels right. And what I've started to realize is that time oftentimes will never come. Some situations that we've hyped up in our minds, that we've pre-assumed what will happen, we pre-assume what adversities we might have to go through or challenges we might face. We have all these different pre-assumptions that makes us fear that situation. In a way, we're essentially creating our own anxiety and our own resistance to that situation. But what I had to realize is that there's some situations that you can't think yourself out of. How people often say like your thoughts determine your feelings and then your feelings determine your actions. While that's true, there's some things that are just new to you and that you will always feel nervous and a resistance towards because they'll be outside of your comfort zone and they won't be your normal essentially. And I had to get to understand that because I was a person who, believe it or not, once upon a time, I used to have a lot of fears. I used to have a lot of anxiety towards certain situations. And it wasn't until I put myself in those situations and faced them and felt everything, regardless of if I was actually prepared for the situation or not. I placed myself in them. And what I've come to realize is that you have to change your relationship and perception to it, because there's just some situations that are going to be new to you that it's inevitable that you're going to be nervous. It's inevitable that you're going to feel some type of resistance or some type of fear, and you're just not going to know how to handle the situation completely. And what it all comes down to really to being able to step into these situations as best as you can is your own trust in yourself. And when I say your own trust in yourself, I mean your trust to be able to figure it out, your trust to be able to handle the worst case scenario, your trust to be able to step into any situation and know that you can bring yourself out of it, throwing yourself in the fire, knowing that throwing yourself in a fire, and usually if you have fear towards a certain something, it's because you need to step into that situation. And the only way you're going to overcome it is to place yourself in it. And self-trust just allows you to throw yourself into it, embrace that feeling, that gut feeling of feeling fear, that gut feeling of, not wanting to be in that situation and that just discomfort. Self-trust will allow you to place yourself in that situation, knowing that, hey, when all of this is done, when I'm finally safe and I'm fine and this whole situation's over with, I know I'm going to be able to get through. I know it won't be the end of the world. My life won't end. And, I'll be able to move on and move forward from the situation. One thing I used to heavily struggle with and still sometimes struggle with to this day is tough conversations. Tough conversations I've had to deal with my whole life, whether it was with family, whether it was with certain friends. Eventually that leaked out into relationships, like intimate relationships and having interest in people and things like that. It's always been it's always been a resistance within me for some reason when it comes to certain tough conversations. And what I had to realize is that there is no amount of preparation that I can do that will, sometimes take that fear away or take that anxiety away. And sometimes I literally just have to throw myself out there. And in throwing myself out there, I've allowed myself to get more comfortable with hard conversations, with necessary conversations. Because a lot of you guys, including myself, might have certain things you want to express, whether that's you finally putting your foot down, whether that's you creating a boundary, whether that's you expressing a feeling, whether that's you having just a hard conversation that's necessary. Maybe you want to cut somebody off. Maybe you want to, let somebody know about something they did to you or something. Like whatever that looks like in your life. Like, these tough conversations create an uncomfortable feeling within us, and there's no amount of preparation in our mind that we can, self-talk our way to, sometimes eliminate that anxiety. And a lot of times we wait for the perfect moment, or we wait till we feel comfortable, and that comfort's never coming. And when you always wait for the right moment, that's how you end up missing out on opportunity. And so what you really have to do is learn how to deal with being in the middle of fear, how to deal with being in the middle of a fire, how to deal with being in the middle of an uncomfortable situation. Because believe me, I wish that I could tell you it's easy. I wish that I could tell you that, hey, once you get in that situation, you won't feel anything, and that your voice won't be trembling, or that you won't feel some type of resistance or discomfort. I wish I could tell you those things, but believe it or not, those things are going to be present, and you have to be willing to fight through them. You have to be willing to face them, because that's the only way you're ever going to be comfortable with them. And what I had to start telling myself is I trust myself to figure it out. I've placed myself, and I pride myself on placing myself in all uncomfortable situations, knowing that growth is on the other side of them. Whether that's a tough conversation, whether that's just a first time thing. Some things are just it's your first time. You've never done it before. Whether that was, for me, it was talking on camera. At one point, that was an anxiety. At one point, that was a fear. At one point, that was a resistance. Whether I was doing public speaking and just talking to people in a front of a live crowd, eventually at one point that was a fear, and that was a struggle. At one point, I struggled to express my feelings and express boundaries to certain people, and express, the self-respect I have for myself. Those are all different tough scenarios where it's there's no amount of preparation you can have in your mind that will ever have you fully prepared for them, especially if it's your first time finally doing that thing. Especially for the longest, when you might have told yourself, I'm gonna get rejected, I'm not good enough, this isn't gonna go well. When you've told yourself all these different thoughts that have made you believe or see the situation in a specific way, there's not just one day you can up and just be oh, you can't just watch this video and be oh, that makes sense now, I just need to change my thoughts, and then you could do it tomorrow, and then you're going to be completely comfortable. No, that's just not how it works. When you understand that, yeah, I just got to put myself out there, you're still going to feel that initial discomfort, and you're still going to feel all those feelings. But what I've had to learn to understand is that change your relationship to your results. A lot of you guys have created your own anxiety because you have so much depending on an outcome, whether that's a conversation, whether that's being afraid of being rejected, whether that's being afraid of other people's judgments, whether that's being afraid of what people might think of you. You've allowed all these different outcomes of that possible scenario to determine how you view yourself, or determine what you're capable of. If you fail, then you're a failure and you're not good enough to do that various different thing. Or if you get rejected, then that must mean you need to change, or that you did something wrong, yada yada, whatever that looks like for you. What I had to realize is that I have to change my relationship to my results, because if I don't, then they'll always hold me back. If I face a fear, and my initial reaction to facing that fear and getting the result is, oh, see, I knew I wasn't good enough. See, I knew I shouldn't have done that. See, I knew this was going to happen, and, my life would be going into shambles. I knew I was a failure, all these different things. If that's your perspective, then you're just going to continue to resist that fear. But if you go into that situation and you face that fear and you're okay, where did I go wrong? This is how I approach these situations. I'm where did I go wrong? What thoughts were I having before heading into that situation that amped up my anxiety or amped up my fears? Where could I have made a better decision in facing that fear? Where could I have, done something differently? Where can I make a change? How can I improve? What's the lesson to learn from here? How can I grow myself as a person? What made it a fear in the first place? What healing do I possibly need to do within myself? When you have this perspective on these situations, it allows the next time you step into them to be more prepared. There's tough conversations that once upon a time were the scariest thing to me. That was once upon a time just approaching a woman. That was once upon a time just meeting new people. That was once upon a time, again, stepping in front of the camera. But it was stepping into those situations and learning from them, opposed to allowing them to define how I view myself or what they meant about me, allowed me to constantly re-enter into them with a lesser fear. You know, it allowed me, each time I stepped into it, I was be getting more and more comfortable. And eventually, the more times you do it, then the more you're gonna be more comfortable stepping into those situations, and the more you're just gonna see all your fear diminish essentially, and all your discomfort diminish essentially. You know, I myself am a very reckless person. I'm a person who always throws himself out there in the situations, whether he's comfortable with them or not. At times I have to force myself. You know, there's one skill I've developed, and it's to recognize my fear, question it, and throw myself out there regardless. And I'm not gonna sit here and act like that's gotten me the best results in life. Sometimes, you know, it's gotten me possibly the worst results in my life, and I've lost important people. I've, you know, failed in certain situations, but it's always allowed me to essentially develop a level of resilience, a level of fearlessness, to always put myself in situations, regardless of if I might fail, if I, you know, might get rejected, regardless of if I have to deal with overcoming a certain challenge or adversity, or dealing with the worst case scenario, if I'm not completely prepared. You know, I pride myself in not living in fear, because I understand that that can be my biggest limit. You know, I understand that on the other side of facing these different fears and stepping into this uncomfortable situations, there will always be growth to take away from it. You know, I always tell myself, like, make the mistakes that you need to make right now while they don't matter. Because a lot of the times, the people in your life right now, the situations you're in, you know, you're capable of recovering from them, especially if you're young. Like, I can make mistakes with the people that are in my life right now because, you know, they're not guaranteed to always be here. And I can make certain mistakes now because it's like, I can always recover. I'm so young, where it's like, I have so many different outcomes and possibilities that are capable of coming to life in my life, essentially. So it's like, I can afford to mess up right now. So it's like, why not put myself in a position to possibly mess up? Why not put myself out there to face my fears and face anxieties and face those uncomfortable situations, so that 10, 20 years from now, I'm so comfortable in those situations and how to manage them when it actually counts, with the people it matters with the business it matters with, you know, certain life decisions. You know, I don't want to be 35 years old or 40 years old and I'm still struggling to have hard conversations, because I've always allowed my fears to dictate my actions, and I've always avoided those certain situations. You know, I have to recognize when I have a resistance. I have to recognize when I'm trying to run away from myself, essentially, and what I actually want in life. Because, you know, if you never go after what you want, then you can never expect to ever have what you want. You know, a lot of times we fear things that enable us to level up ourselves. And it's like, again, you're always going to feel discomfort with stepping into new things. And that's usually what happens with growth. It's like, you can't grow into something more unless you're stepping into things that you don't currently have, or you're becoming a different person that you've never been. Like, that's the whole point of growth. You have to do new things. You have to experience new experiences, and you have to do things that you've never heard of before, place yourself in environments that you've never been in before. And so in knowing those things, it's like, you know, you just got to get through this initial moment of fear, this initial moment of this being your first. And after you could face that, bro, like it's safe sailing. It's a thing where it's like, you know, I can handle this. A lot of us, we fear if we're able to handle it. And that's why I built my self-trust. Like, regardless of what situation I place myself in, I know I can handle it. I know God's got me. I know that regardless of what the worst case scenario is, I'm going to be able to move forward from it. Again, I'm going to be able to recover from it, whatever mistake it is, whatever opinion some person might have of me, whatever situation I just get myself into. You know, I trust myself to be able to recover from that situation, to be able to handle that situation, to be able to express myself, and, you know, just be able to overcome it to where it doesn't completely destroy my life, basically. I know the worst case scenario will always be a scenario that I can bounce back from, essentially, and it won't have me down for too long. It's always something that I can pick myself back up from. And that's kind of the approach you have to have to certain uncomfortable situations, because it's like, if you don't have that mindset, then You know, you'll always hold yourself back from stepping into the reality or stepping into that better version of yourself that you're trying to become, because you don't know how to manage your fears. You don't know how to manage discomfort. You don't know how to step into uncomfortable situations until you're comfortable in them. Understanding that, you know, you have to place yourself in those situations in order to become comfortable with. You know, I placed myself in so many situations where I've had my voice trembling, where I've had my little stomach at my ass, basically, like where I literally tense up. When I tell y'all, like, I've been in so many different scenarios where my fears completely took over my body. Like, I'm not even exaggerating that. I've been in courtrooms, I've had conversations with parents, I've had conversations with certain friends and things like that, where literally, like, I'm shaking, literally I can't breathe because I have certain anxiety. I had anxiety in those moments. Classroom presentations, oh my gosh, at one point I used to like dang near break down and cry during presentations because I literally have no idea why. It was just like a situation that was uncomfortable to me. But it was like I placed myself in so many different situations, and they've allowed me to just grow myself. They've allowed me to build a sense of strength of being able to put myself into certain situations, because I feel like I've already faced like the worst of life dang near. Like, I've already lost people that I never wanted to lose. I've already been through certain pain that I didn't want to go through. And I've seen that I've been able to make it through those storms. I've seen that God's always by my side and all these different things, to where it's like, you know, I can handle anything, regardless of if it's comfortable or not. You know, I've just been through everything, and I've overcome so much to where it's like, I literally fear nothing. And it's like, I just gotta put myself out there continuously and continue growing, continue understanding that I'm capable of overcoming whatever life presents to me. Whatever life tries to throw in my way, I'm capable of overcoming it. And when you can develop that mindset after placing yourself in uncomfortable situations over and over, understanding that that's what's going to make you a better you, then eventually you're just going to develop a sense of resilience and just like fearlessness to where nothing in life can truly stop you. But you know, I appreciate you guys for tuning into the video. I hope you learned a lot from this video. Merch is on the way, is coming out soon, and be sure to join up on the school community down in the description while it's free, and be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and join up on the Discord. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.